Welcome, everybody, to the final Sunday before the 2024 NFL season kicks off. I'm your host, Joshua Hudson. With me today is Mr. Hoov, one of our contributors here at Club Fantasy, also at Optimus Fantasy. He's the co-host of our Trade Blocked show, which is our Dynasty trade show here at Club Fantasy FFL. Joel had to take some personal time. So, Joel, we love you. We miss you. We'll be waiting for you when you come back. But today we wanted to wrap up the series that Joel and I started, which is our Dynasty Price Check series. We're going to be covering the wide receivers and tight ends today. Just kind of some, we'll say, buy targets that you should be going through and targeting as the season gets started that you can probably get for the cheap because maybe they only have value for 2024, potentially for 2025. So let's get into it. What up, Mr. Hoov? How you doing?
What is up, beautiful people? Good morning. I'm feeling good. Feel like James Brown. I feel good.
The only person I know that is this hype in the morning.
I just drafted Taysom Hill in the Women of Fantasy draft in like the 12th round. So that's probably the greatest value that you can get. Okay. You know, they got like a 0.5 tight end reception bonus. So I'm feeling great about that. Always start Taysom Hill, probably get tight end 10 finish.
Well, it is. These are best ball leagues. So
that's right. Yeah. So I'm feeling great.
He'll win 12-9 in ours. So.
Yes, but you know that's redraft. So we're talking Dynasty today. We're gonna change the focus into Dynasty long term, but let's get into it. Okay.
Love it. All right. So as mentioned in the intro, we're going to be talking about players to trade for before, well, Thursday, basically, because that's when the whole shindig kicks off. So before we get into all of that, I want to go through and start with our reads because we got to pay some bills around here and we want to show you all about all the really cool shit that we got going on. So let's first start with our partnership with Trophy Smack, our sister site, Women of Fantasy Football and Trophy Smack. They have you covered. If you go to trophysmack.com/WOFF, that's WOFF, to get any and all of your championship gear. So trophies, belts, rings. They have these really cool new sort of like display footballs that are engraved with like, you know, league champion and stuff. Really cool setup that they have over there at Trophy Smack. And even if you want to embarrass the losers of your league, they have a whole losers line of products that you can buy to throw that dunce cap basically on the losers of your league. But more importantly, they have their ladies league page. So head over to trophysmack.com/WOFF, WOFF, and check out their new rose gold plated championship belt. It is absolutely gorgeous. You can customize it how needed, different belt side of things. But the best part here, from now until September 24th, if you buy a trophy or a belt, use promo code WOFF, WOFF at checkout and get yourself some free bling. That's right. They're giving you a free championship ring with the purchase of a belt or trophy. Once again, that's trophysmack.com/WOFF, WOFF. And of course, we can't forget about our lovely friends over at Dynasty Nerds. We have our partnership here with Dynasty Nerds. You can go to dynastynerds.com, use promo code CLUBFANTASY at checkout, and save yourself 15% off of any of their memberships. You get everything from the Dynasty GM tools. They're all 22 film room. And if anybody was paying attention, college football officially kicked off yesterday. And there's some people that you definitely want to go and check out as you get ready for your 2025 rookie drafts. So head over to dynastynerds.com, use promo code CLUBFANTASY at checkout, and save yourself 15%. I'm going to go ahead and leave that ticker going throughout the rest of the show. But let's get into our wide receiver targets here in Dynasty. Now, as I mentioned, what we ultimately are trying to do with this series, we want to help you acquire players that are going to help you win in 2024. Obviously, we know what Dynasty is all about. We want to try and stay young. We want to have longevity. We want to be a dominant team forever, basically. But the simple fact is, you still want to win. And sometimes you got to pay to get some players that can help you win in 2024. So, Hoov, I first want to ask you, how do you go about identifying some of these players that you say, all right, maybe they can't help me in 2025, 26, 27, but if they can move the needle for me in 2024, let's make that move.
Oh, opportunity and upside. The first two things to come to mind. Easy answers. Easy answers. You throw strikes, I'm going to hit dingers. Okay, baby? So opportunity, volume, all the smart things, all the smart answers you want to say. But for me, looking at players for me that I personally think that even if it's not this year or next year, by year 2, that they're definitely showing some upside, or even people that I think that in a dynasty landscape to target, maybe even throughout the year, that that they're going to have like a rough four weeks to start the year. Maybe target them, around there for a dynasty landscape. I know that some of these wide receiver targets that we're talking about throughout the episode today are some great targets that you should be targeting from either side, whether you want to be going after these guys or you want to be tearing the team down and going after some younger assets too. But with younger assets, it's kind of hard to see from a generalized standpoint, like a generalized fantasy owner, if like how you can depict which rookies are going to be good. And it's really kind of looking at the offense and seeing where how things are going to be spread out. And it might not be the first year, but if there's enough talent that they will be utilized on an NFL field at some point. So that's what I would be looking at.
Yeah, something that we try to preach a lot, Joel and I, is acquiring assets is great. Getting those fourths and thirds, it's like throw-ins on deals. Those are the things that help seal deals when you are trying to go after the players that you want. Bingo. So cheap assets are great, right? They're going to help put you over the top. When you're acquiring draft picks and making said picks, now you have assets that are all about projection, and people fall in love with projection. So if you have the ability to send that unproven rookie or, second-year player that showed some promise but maybe didn't pop quite yet, and somebody says, all right, I have faith in that guy, and you can move them to get pieces that are well-established in the league that can help you win, those are trades that you ultimately should be trying to make. So here, the first target that we want to get into, let's talk about Mike Evans. Because Mike Evans just signed a brand spanking new 3-year contract, and I believe he's 31 years old. He had a phenomenal season last year with Baker Mayfield throwing him the football. He's been a 10-plus touchdown per year scorer over the years, multitude of times. He's on Jerry Rice levels of production when it comes to consecutive 1,000-yard seasons in a row. It's going for, I believe it's number 11 this year in 2024. So, first, let's get your thoughts on Mike Evans, kind of where you see him sitting in sort of like that hierarchy of dynasty wide receivers.
Mike Evans is someone that obviously the talents you can see clear as day on the field. And always is fantasy relevant, always great in fantasy. But it really comes down to for someone like Mike Evans, when his value is good, and you're getting him almost at a bargain, that's when I'm buying the most Mike Evans. But recently, I haven't had a lot of shares with Mike Evans just because I feel like, the change in offense, with their offensive coordinator. Oh man, the name is slipping right now. It's too early in the morning. Maybe I need to drink a little bit more of my tea. Sorry?
Liam Cohen. Liam Cohen's their current offensive coordinator. No, Dave Canales is the one that left.
Yes, Canales. Dave Canales. That's the one I'm thinking of. Is the fact that Dave Canales is now in Carolina and Baker Mayfield's getting another new offensive coordinator. like that's one thing that I feel like people are kind of underestimating with Mike Evans' production this year. Like maybe it is a little bit more Chris Godwin this year. Maybe it is, a little less Rachaad White, even though I would hate that as a Rachaad White guy. I feel like in the past with Mike Evans, like almost like a Cooper Kupp, like the seasons where everyone's like in on Cooper Kupp, you have to be like investing so much, you're not as in on him. But when you get him in like the third, fourth round, that's when you can really kind of scoop up some value on guys like Mike Evans, Cooper Kupp, that people are kind of not viewing as high in a redraft or dynasty landscape. So I still like Mike Evans, but it would really come down to the deal for me. Just kind of thinking that things might change a little bit in Tampa Bay this year.
Yeah, I think there's definitely some trepidation when you look at that Bucs offense. Dave Canales comes in and, he's going to run the three wide. He's going to get the wide receivers involved. And that's exactly what he did. Chris Godwin had an okay season for terms of targets, but only 2 touchdowns. Really kind of took a hit on his fantasy value. But Mike Evans became that go-to guy, which we've seen with Baker. He doesn't typically do. So it was really fun to kind of see like, hey, Mike Evans, big pop. All right, cool. How can they continue to build that rapport? We talked about Mike Evans getting that contract extension. Baker Mayfield also got himself a contract extension. He's got a little bit of security there now as a starting quarterback. He has a previous relationship with Liam Cohen going back to his short stint with the Rams. So by all accounts, you would think there's going to be some comfortability there. Shouldn't be much of a hiccup when it comes to the Baker Mayfield, Mike Evans connection. But again, you're talking about an older guy. You're still talking about a new offense in a way. So there's definitely reasons to be cautious. So if I'm a contender, I don't have an issue holding Mike Evans unless I can get somebody that I think is, I don't want to necessarily say like an ascending talent, but I have zero issue throwing Mike Evans in a deal to get like a DeVonta Smith, for instance, right? Like even if I got to tack on, an extra piece or two. But I find this trade that you've added into the show sheet here, Hoov, interesting because to me, this is something that I'm making a deal for. If Mike Evans is sitting on my rebuilding roster, I'm going to make this trade 100 times out of 100. So we got Mike Evans for Adonai Mitchell, Jalen Polk, 2025 third. Walk us through this trade.
I love this trade. And that's kind of, these are two guys that me personally, I believe that I've talked about Adonai Mitchell on Club Fantasy. And I believe I wrote about Jalen Polk on Optimist Fantasy. So I've been preaching about this all off season about the upside for these guys. Adonai Mitchell, like I talked about in Club Fantasy with that article specifying about the Colts in our breakdown series. It might not be this year. That next year, once Anthony Richardson is going to be fully healthy, that Adonai Mitchell is going to be the guy. Like he's in the Alec Pierce role, and Alec Pierce might be around a little bit, but once Anthony Richardson's fully healthy and you see guys like Adonai Mitchell with the talent there and they figure everything out, oh man, by year 2 that they could be a great asset. So Adonai Mitchell is someone that I'm targeting. I'm taking a stab on in the second round in most drafts anyways. And then Jalen Polk, I feel like I'm not alone in this one at this point anymore. There's a lot of people that are talking great things about Jalen Polk and what he could do with New England. Could it be this year? Who knows? There's still a lot of guys like Demario Douglas and Javon Baker. Like it could be Javon Baker, but until they figure things out with Drake May and Jacoby Brissett taking all the hits, it could be something like where Jacoby Brissett is like the old guard and he targets someone like Demario Douglas most of the season. And then once Drake May comes in and he wants to start using these young guys, like that's when the future is now with Jalen Polk and Javon Baker. So I think like Jalen Polk at some point during the season, whether he's a huge target from Jacoby Brissett or whether he's a huge target from Drake May in 2025, he's someone that you should definitely be targeting because there's so much upside there with like I mean, who's going to beat him? Like I think Jalen Polk is a little more talented than Demario Douglas, but that's my preference. I think that Demario Douglas is talented, but he'll be talented on a different offense. Like there's just too much transition for Demario Douglas. Like he had to really stand out to be a part of this Patriots franchise for the future. So I think Jalen Polk's going to knock it out of the park this year.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of uncertainty with that Patriots wide receiver room. But like you said, I mean, rookie wide receivers typically take time, right? It's very rare that they come in right away, pop in the first week, and then just continue it all season long. I know we've gotten really spoiled with the seasons that Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase have put up, and even Puka Nacua last year. So there's this unrealistic expectation that rookies need to come in and light the world on fire. It's just not going to be the case, especially when you're talking about a Patriots offense that A, has a dog shit offensive line, and B, has some QB questions going from Brissett, the incumbent, to the future in Drake May. Brissett now being named the starter. I'm with you. Polk's going to get some run. He's probably going to have a couple games here and there, but I think when you really see him pop is going to be the tail end of next year. Kind of the same thing with Adonai Mitchell. I'm not sold on A-Rich this year. I think everybody's a year too early. His big arm is going to play very well for what Adonai Mitchell does and what he can do, especially in that Shane Steichen offense. But so much of that's going to fall on A-Rich. So if I'm a rebuilding team, those are pieces that I want to get. I personally would probably want to try to get that 2025 second instead of a third for Evans and just call it 3 second-round picks, basically. But, you're pulling strings at that point. Like, it is what it is. Anytime I can offload a 30-plus-year-old wide receiver for really 3 young assets, I'm going to do that in a heartbeat. So,
like, if I had a rough guess on what the numbers would be, I'm looking at Adonai Mitchell this season. Maybe, JSN had 700 last year, so he could do.
Yeah, I think he'd be lucky to get half that, but that's just.
Oh, are you? Stop. That's crazy. Okay,
It's not an indictment on the talent. That's the thing. It's not an indictment on the talent. It's an indictment on they're not going to throw the football much.
I'll say 500. I'll say 500 for sure with Adonai Mitchell, and then maybe there's like a lot of touchdowns that kind of like make him more fantasy productive. But Jalen Polk,
I fully believe he can score.
Jalen Polk could hit 700 this year easy.
I agree.
Yeah. So you're looking at 1,200 yards roughly with a third-round pick in Mike Evans. Change of offense. He's going to hit 1,000 more than likely, like till the wheels fall off. You're going to bank on that. But 1,000 versus 12,000, he's probably hit 11,000 actually. So
1,100.
Did I say 11,000? Yeah, 1,100. Yeah. Maybe career-wise, for sure. Career-wise, absolutely.
All right, I want to pull up this question here. I want to hear this question here from Cat for Life. Why is Rachaad White getting a bad rap in the first 3 rounds? I'm going to assume that this is more of a redraft-focused question because I would not personally be spending a third-round pick in a Dynasty startup on Rachaad White. So, Hoov, I'll start with you. First 3 rounds of drafts, are you completely avoiding Rachaad White? Where do you feel Rachaad White going in drafts?
It depends on how I build it. Like, I'm still taking many shots on Rachaad White at his current cost, but it depends on like if he falls a little bit to me. Like, if I want to build my team top heavy, I'm just gonna go after like Breece Hall and I'm gonna target like those guys because like even Jahmyr Gibbs, like I feel like I've almost forgotten about Rachaad White and Rhamondre Stevenson, guys that I was big on a few weeks ago. But the fact that you're seeing like Jahmyr Gibbs drop a few spots, maybe I'm just gonna like change my whole strategy and just go hero RB. So it's been kind of like how the cards will fall recently for me, but I'm not out on Rachaad White. I think that there's still so much opportunity for him this year. I don't think Bucky Irving's going to come in and do very much. Like, there's opportunity for Bucky Irving to do something, change of offense, like I was alluding to earlier with Mike Evans. But it still feels like a Travis Etienne type offense with Rachaad White. I mean, like we were talking about on Trade Block recently, he doesn't have to look good. He just has to produce. Like someone like Joe Mixon, like the efficiency might not be great, but when he's on the field, he's good. That's just kind of how it is. So Rachaad White could be another Joe Mixon where people just don't love Rachaad White, but he's still that guy for a long time.
Yeah, and that's really my whole point with Rachaad White. He's Joe Mixon without the touchdowns. Like inefficient runner. He's going to see the volume, which is great. Which I mean, if I'm staring at him in the 6th round, I don't mind taking him, but I might probably flip over to the wide receivers and see who's available. I think Rachaad White's biggest asset was health last year because a lot of the top running backs got hurt. He ended up playing 17 games. That's why he finished as the RB4. He sees a lot of passing work, and that's great. They spent some draft capital to get Bucky Irving. It's the same thing, and I said this last year when the Jaguars drafted Tank Bigsby. They want to try to get Bigsby involved to limit how much Travis Etienne gets used to, make things easier for him later in the season. This is the same concept with the Bucs. What the biggest question is going to be is how quickly does Bucky Irving take to the offense to actually be able to see viable snaps to then cut into the Rachaad White production. So, and if he continues to remain an inefficient running back, there's going to be opportunity for Bucky Irving. Bucky Irving has to come in and prove it. That's going to be the biggest thing. So that's why I'm not completely out on White, because we haven't really seen it from Bucky Irving, but it's making me cautious. And that's what I will say in terms of Rachaad White.
Cautious in the same sense that people were cautious about Kenneth Walker last year. And obviously he knocked it out of the park. Yeah. There's plenty of opportunity for Zach Charbonnet to come in there and take away many opportunities. But the fact that he couldn't get a grasp on the offense or get the opportunities that he needed to get hot, that's kind of why. So it could be the same situation where Bucky Irving just doesn't latch onto the offense and Rachaad White's still that guy. So am I going to go after Rachaad White in Dynasty? I don't know. Redraft, worth a shot.
Fair enough. All right, I'm going to pull up this question from Caesar here.
Okay.
Thoughts on trading Waddle and Rhamondre Stevenson for Jahmyr Gibbs?
Yeah, I'm in.
Which side are you on?
I think I'm in. I think I'm assuming that they're giving up Waddle and Rhamondre for Gibbs because that's just Gibbs is the best player on this deal. But for me, I've been talking about going after Jalen Waddle for the right price for a long time, and this is a great price. I mean, Rhamondre Stevenson, he always could sneak his way into their top 10. He's definitely going to be borderline top 10, most definitely probably like a top RB2 in most leagues, like right outside top 12, anywhere between 12 to 15, 16 in that range. That's where I would probably have him. So there's going to be plenty of weeks that Rhamondre Stevenson just completely blows Antonio Gibson out of the water. And Jalen Waddle, we don't know how long Tyreek Hill is going to be able to maintain this. Obviously, till the wheels fall off with Tyreek Hill. But, they drafted Jalen Waddle for a reason, to be his successor. Sorry. What's in that T? So there's a reason why they have Jalen Waddle there. And I think that eventually he's going to surpass Tyreek Hill once you see a little regression of Tyreek Hill, but we haven't seen it. But still, in a dynasty landscape, that feels very appropriate. And I think I would go after a Waddle share with that price.
Yeah, honestly, I don't hate either side of this. I think if you're strong at wide receiver, by all means, give up Waddle, go get Jahmyr Gibbs. He's a huge upgrade from Rhamondre, and you're really not losing much with Waddle. But I can also see the argument for the other side. You get a quality running back and a viable wide receiver. Rhamondre, I think the biggest thing, it's less about volume, kind of similar to Rachaad White. It's more about scoring touchdowns. He has the ability to score touchdowns. He's just not in a good enough offense to where he can score touchdowns consistently. And that's kind of where I sit on that trade specifically. So, all right, let's move on here. Let's talk about Davante Adams. We know how great Davante Adams has been. We know how good he was last year and the last couple of years. I think he's the only wide receiver, actually, that has secured over a 30% target share. Not just last year, but the last 2 years. Change of quarterback-ish. Gardner Minshew coming in, Aiden O'Connell still there. Don't really see this being a high passing volume offense, but we know that Davante Adams can score touchdowns. So, where do you sit on Davante Adams in 2024 and potentially 2025?
This is someone that I haven't really given a lot of thought on this offseason. So it feels good to finally get a take out there. I've been looking at so many of these veteran players around the league and wanting and trying to find a reason to look at the next generation and say, this is the year that they surpassed them. I don't know if I can really say that about Davante Adams, knowing the talent and knowing that even Gardner Minshew, who's not a great NFL quarterback, he still made Michael Pittman like a top 20 wide receiver, I believe, confidently. Most weeks he was winning you leagues if you had Michael Pittman on your roster. So I feel like Davante Adams is someone that in a dynasty landscape, I feel like this is the time where if you're a contender and you can get the right price for Davante Adams and you can throw him in your flex spot and feel confident about Davante Adams, absolutely. But if you're not there yet, Davante Adams has to be one of your targets that you're trying to trade as close to a first round pick as possible for him at this price. It's very similar to Mike Evans. It's like they're at this point where you want to find a reason to doubt them, but you can't yet. And that's why it's almost to the wheels fall off with Davante Adams. Same thing with Mike Evans. Same thing with Derrick Henry. Same thing with Tyreek Hill. It's like we're trying to find these reasons to doubt these players, and we can't find them. Like there's players that are a lot younger than them that are showing a lot less efficiency than they are. So it's not an age thing. It's a talent thing. And I can't doubt Davante Adams' talent regardless of the quarterback. It's the same thing like why we're not doubting Malik Neighbors with Daniel Jones. And I still think Gardner Minshew is a better quarterback than Daniel Jones most Sundays. So why are we not thinking that Davante Adams isn't going to produce like how he has been? So I think that this year you're safe with Davante Adams, but I would still tear it down if I had an opportunity.
Yeah, for me, I had Davante in one league, and I got out before last year, and I was able to get a share of Amari St. Brown in return. I was like, let's roll, baby. This year, obviously, I don't know that you're going to be able to get that level of a return, but one of these trades that you plugged in here, I think is really interesting because if I had DeVonta Smith, I don't know that I would want to trade him for Davante Adams, but I can definitely see where one will probably help you a little bit more this year to get you over the top, especially with AJ Brown sitting above Smitty in the pecking order.
I mean, that's a great way to put it. Is like Davante Adams is definitely going to help you get over the hump. Mm-hmm. But DeVonta Smith, youth, like if you're looking for someone to tear down and you're trying to get as equal value of Davante Adams as possible, that's your guy. DeVonta Smith is so talented that I've talked about on many shows as well as on Club Fantasy as well, Trade Block, is that if anyone is going to have the talent to outperform what Kellen Moore's offense provides for a wide receiver too, it is DeVonta Smith. That guy is so good. And like, it doesn't matter. Like if you have Jalen Hurts, Saquon Barkley, Dallas Goedert, whoever, who else is there? It's DeVonta Smith is so much better than even Jahan Dotson now as wide receiver 3. Like DeVonta Smith should not be worried about that. If anyone is going to outproduce their current role, it would be DeVonta Smith with his talent. So with the youth combined with that, obviously he's not going to produce Davante Adams numbers, but that's very, very good comp.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like I said, I don't hate it. I don't love it. I think both of these guys can be quality contributors for competing teams. I guess it really kind of depends on the state of your roster. I mean, if I'm running a dynasty team the way that my co-host, with no pun intended, Ryan Weiss, runs a dynasty team, I'll trade DeVonta Smith for Davante Adams because I know my roster is going to be old and I'm going to tear it down after this season anyway. So I'm not thinking long-term there, right? I'm thinking short-term. But this next trade I think is interesting in the sense that this is a pretty clear, if I'm all in, I'm all in. Go get Davante Adams. If I'm going to tear it down, then so be it. Let's go get the rookie in the draft pick.
I mean, you're getting one hell of a route runner in return for Davante Adams. One of the best route runners in the league, probably arguably the best route runner in the league, if we're being honest with Davante Adams. That guy's a freaking first ballot Hall of Famer, Davante Adams. Much like Keenan Allen, probably, with his route running. He'd be a first ballot route runner, Hall of Famer. That's what Keenan Allen would be. Same with Davante Adams. But Ladd McConkey, I don't know how good he's going to be in a Jim Harbaugh offense. There's going to be years that he definitely outproduces it with a top-tier quarterback like Justin Herbert. But I don't know if Ladd McConkey's ever going to be what people expect him to be. Ladd McConkey is held on so strongly by the fact that they don't have a true wide receiver one. But the moment that they do, like if the Chargers went out and got a true wide receiver one, Ladd McConkey's value would vanish within seconds. Like, as great of a player as he is, there's no opportunity for two wide receivers in a Jim Harbaugh offense. Like, it's just so run heavy that I'm very worried about Ladd McConkey dynasty wise. But there are people out there that are in on Ladd McConkey, and I could be wrong. And the fact that I'm taking a stab on Ladd McConkey, and I can take a stab on someone in 2025, that feels appropriate for Davante Adams.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think this is a solid trade. And again, I think it's a lot of the perceived value with Ladd McConkey. I kind of look at him as a quality wide receiver too. And I think people are way too high on him for this year because the top wide receiver option outside of McConkey in that Chargers offense right now is Josh Palmer. And people seem to just like toss him to the side like he's not some freaking dog that filled in for Mike Williams and Keenan Allen over the years. So, I think this is a great deal to go get Davante Adams for a competing team. But I also don't hate it if you're a rebuilding team either, because the moment that I get McConkey for Davante Adams, I'm going to turn around and flip McConkey to go get, I'll go get someone like DeVonta Smith.
Yeah,
I'll make that deal. More than happy to do that. So, all right, let's get to the next guy here. Amari Cooper.
Whew.
Amari Cooper is a very interesting player in terms of not just even dynasty, but fantasy football in general, because he feels like he's been in the league for 15 years. He's only been in the league half of that. A lot of ups and downs. He's now on his third NFL team. Started obviously with the Raiders, traded to the Cowboys, then moved over to the Browns. They recently restructured his contract, so he, I believe, is a free agent after this year. But again, he is the number one target on this team. I went through when we did our Cleveland Browns preview for 2024 and actually looked at, kind of projecting out what his stats were with Deshaun Watson and then without Deshaun Watson. If you extrapolate it out over both for a full season, he would have scored literally the exact same number of fantasy points and finished exactly where he finished last year. He is the unquestioned top target in this Browns offense. They're fully expecting Deshaun Watson to be healthy all season long. Whether he is or not, I don't know. We know that Jameis Winston can come in and throw the football a la Joe Flacco in 2023. So let's give the quick 2024 preview on Cooper before we get into the trades.
I'm definitely not drafting Jerry Jeudy out of that offense. That's for damn sure. It's only to me. I mean, like I drafted Jerome Ford last night in the Women Fantasy League as well. Just because you know what Kevin Stefanski is going to do. He's going to pound the rock. It's going to go through Amari Cooper, and the secondary option is probably going to be David Njoku. And like Kelly would tell us, he smells great and he catches balls even better, So like David Njoku's a dog. I don't know if he'd ever like eat away too much into Amari Cooper, but I guess if you're like really big on Jerry Jeudy, and God help you if you are, bless your soul.
Yeah, right.
But I can't doubt Amari Cooper. That's just another guy, like very much like Davante Adams and Mike Evans. Like the only person that at this point that I'm going to doubt a little bit is Keenan Allen, just because of opportunity in Shane Waldron's offense. But nothing's changed. He's still with Kevin Stefanski. Like Josh was alluding to, everything goes through him. Much like Amon-Ra St. Brown in Detroit, obviously a better offense, but still like everything goes through him. So I'm drafting Amari Cooper at price 100% if I get the opportunity.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, the biggest thing that with Cooper is the away games, right? He's always better at home than he is away. He has, some ebbs and flows in his offense. And Joe, I'm just going to pull this up, buddy. Jerry Jeudy is ass. I'm sorry. That 3-year contract, not great. He couldn't do it in Denver. And Russell Wilson, for everything that he had last year, 28 touchdown passes, and Jeudy caught, I think, 2 of them. So let's please get off of this Jerry Jeudy hype train. He is a much better NFL player than he is fantasy football player. He can run routes, but dude's got alligator arms.
I love okay, man. I love Courtland Sutton. I think he is so underrated, but he is not as good as Amari Cooper. And like even Courtland Sutton proved how much better he was than Jerry Jeudy. So like I can't think it's gonna be Jerry Jeudy. He could be like the third, receiving option, but still, and David Njoku would go before him. And like I'm not getting on Jerry Jeudy as wide receiver 3 of the Browns in a sense, or wide receiver or third receiving option in Cleveland. Yeah. That's the better way to put it. But Jerome Ford is probably going to
catch passes too.
Yeah, he can catch passes as well. That's another reason why I drafted him. I mean, like I was looking at drafting Jerome Ford or Christian Watson last night. And I'm like, well, Jerome Ford is catching as many passes as Christian Watson is, and he has the rushing on top of it. So I think I'm going to go with Jerome Ford. And I feel very good about that waking up today. So can't doubt it.
There you go. And Joe, getting them late is one thing. That's perfectly fine. Draft stash, because let's face it, we are talking about Amari Cooper being up there in age. If something were to happen, Judy's going to ultimately slide into that role. So late options, great. Don't waste your time on him in Dynasty. It's kind of the moral of the story.
I could be wrong. There could be a few games that he just like really wants to prove the doubters wrong. And in a best ball league, sometimes you go for storylines. You go for Gabe Davises. You go for guys like that. So like, I guess like I'm not gonna hate it, but I'm not gonna like. No one should be going after Jerry Jeudy in Dynasty. Yeah.
All right. So this first Cooper trade here, Amari Cooper for Khalil Shakir and a 2025 second. A lot of people, again, another offense that has a lot of uncertainty at the wide receiver position, the Buffalo Bills. Khalil Shakir heading into year 3. Shown a few flashes, but nothing really to get overly excited about, considering he was a 5th-round pick. But again, everything is in front of him. And an opportunity can pop for Khalil Shakir to see 100 targets. If you're on a rebuilding team, getting Khalil Shakir, 2nd-round pick for Amari Cooper, I would be trying to do better, but I don't think it's a bad trade by any means.
I think I really like this. Like, I think that this is like the perfect teardown for Amari Cooper right there. You have someone that you're seeing the reports that sometimes you have to follow the reports. Sometimes it's all a bunch of crap, but like most of the time you can kind of like, if you read enough stuff and you can kind of see the trail, everything is showing that Khalil Shakir is going to be the wide receiver 1. It's going to be Shakir and Kincaid mostly, and Samuel will be a gadget guy. In Keon Coleman, once he's ready, which at this point he is struggling with separation, and that's things rookies deal with. It'll be fine in the future, most likely. I'm not going to bank on it. I don't have a lot of Keon Coleman shares, just because I like Adonai Mitchell waiting a little bit, but that's my preference. But Khalil Shakir, this is his year to showcase what he can do in that role. The offense is going to change a little bit, like we were talking about with Tampa Bay. I think that this offense is going to have a drastic change. I remember Josh and I were arguing earlier in the offseason about 2 tight end sets with Brady, and like how likely that is. So I think that this is going to be a very run heavy team. And if anyone's going to be extremely fantasy productive out of the wide receiver room this year, I would take a stab on Khalil Shakir being that guy this year. Dynasty wise, obviously it's Keon Coleman, but with a 2025 second on top of it, can't beat that price for Amari Cooper.
Yeah. And I mean, again, if you wanted to kind of flip this, they'd still try to get a piece of the Buffalo Bills offense. Amari Cooper straight up for Keon Coleman. I don't hate that deal either.
I feel like someone would fight you on it. I feel like there's too much hype still around Keon Coleman at that point.
I mean, that's fair, but you're still talking about, Keon Coleman was a 2nd round pick in rookie drafts, depending on your format.
Yeah,
I mean, that's basically just saying
class.
Cooper for a 2nd. I mean,
yeah.
I'm just saying it's a topic to be had, right? Like,
yeah.
Sure. You can maybe throw on a 3rd, maybe a 2nd, depending on how you value Cooper. Some people might want that extra 2nd, even with the upside of someone like Coleman. But again, I think that's the type of trade that's a conversation starter, right? And that's what a lot of these trades are at this point. So,
we will rehash this in the future. We will.
There you go. All right. Let's go over to our next guy who both of us have man crushes on, Courtland Sutton. Look, we're big fans of Courtland Sutton here at Club Fantasy. Joe has a hard-on for SMU wide receivers. Courtland Sutton being one of the more successful ones that have come into the league. Obviously, the ACL injury a couple of years ago definitely hampered him. But he showed what he can do just throughout the years. He's been a target guy. He's been a yards guy. He's been a touchdown guy. This year, I think there's more opportunity than ever for him to put all 3 of those together, seeing as how every other wide receiver position behind him is very much unsettled. They have a young quarterback whom they drafted in the 1st round this year in Bo Nix. There's an opportunity where Courtland Sutton can be Slant Boy 2.0. The difference being Courtland Sutton has the ability to actually get downfield the way that Michael Thomas never did. So let's talk real quick. What kind of value do you see Courtland Sutton having in 2024 before we get into the trade?
I don't like that. I mean, like, I like it, but
the theory. It's not anything more than that.
Fuck, I didn't want to get talked into Courtland Sutton today, man. Shit. Okay. I can get down with that. Okay. But like here was my thing all along is that if let's say Russell Wilson was terrible, which he wasn't, but let's say he was, and that Bo Nix coming in and Bo Nix running Sean Payton's offense the way that Sean Payton is going to fix everything, and that this team finally clicks, and that Courtland Sutton can finally have this awesome young quarterback with rushing upside and Bo Nix. Like, is he gonna have the DJ Moore effect? I can't say, like, I don't know about that. Like, if anyone's gonna be a DJ Moore candidate this year, it's Terry McLaurin. I don't know if I can like look at what Bo Nix is and look at what Courtland Sutton is and think, okay, he'll probably blow it out of the water. But I don't know how much. Like, that's a lot to ask on Courtland Sutton. There's enough talent, and I get to see your point. But man, that's tough.
Do you think that if I read you a 75, 1080, 9 touchdowns slash line, do you think that is completely out of the question for Courtland Sutton?
No.
See, I don't either. That's a wide receiver 2 in fantasy more often than not.
Damn. Okay. Yep. I'm talked into Courtland Sutton.
I mean, he's probably going to see 120 plus targets. Like, I don't think they're going to come out. I don't think the Broncos are going to sit here and throw the football, 600 times. Like, this is just not what they're going to do. They're going to dump off the ball a lot. Sean Payton offenses call a ton of running back targets, right? They led the NFL last year. I believe the running backs in Denver had close to a 30% target share, if not a little bit more. They jettisoned all of their wide receivers. They're banking on unproven guys like Marvin Mims and Troy Franklin. You've got Josh Reynolds, who, has done well, but in short spurts. And then you have Courtland Sutton. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, when you look at the Michael Thomas type Saint teams, it was him and a bunch of vagabonds, basically. I think that Sutton profile is a little bit better or closer to Marquez Colston. And the deep threats that they do have, a la Mims and Troy Franklin, are very unproven. Okay. But I'm just saying, like, how they want to use him. Like, Colston could get down the field the same way that Courtland Sutton can get down the field as well. But Marquez Colston never saw like high peak target seasons. It was usually like 130-ish, and really 130 targets in nowadays NFL is nothing. So that's why I say, like, profile wise, that's where I see him as.
Well, apparently this is the report, is that the Niners would have been willing to trade Brandon Ayuk to the Steelers if they could have gotten Courtland Sutton in return for a third-round pick. And so, like, to me, that already sparked interest with Courtland Sutton even before this conversation, which is why when you're presenting this to me, I'm like, that's it. That he is way too good, probably for a third-round pick. And, like, what he's going to be in that offense, he's probably going to have everything go through him. You got a point. But I don't know how great this offense is going to be.
And that's my point. That's why, like, I think it's okay to value Courtland Sutton for this year, but it leaves a door open that there's some value in 2025, but it also says, man, this script could completely flip in 2025.
Yeah.
So that's why, like, this trade that you brought on, that you added here, I'm kind of a fan of. I dig it. Courtland Sutton for Romeo Doubs in a second. There's obviously been reports. You have some people that are going to tell you that the wide receiver to target in Green Bay is Romeo Doubs. There's some people that will say it's Jaden Reed. Some people, the opinions are all over the board. But the one thing that I do know is Doubs is not going to come off the field the way that Jaden Reed will likely come off the field if they do run your 12 personnel. Doubs had 8 touchdowns last year. Jordan Love he was third in the NFL last year at 32 touchdowns. I don't really see this offense regressing, right? So if I'm the Sutton manager and maybe I'm trying to move off for some younger pieces, I don't hate this deal, but Romeo Doubs really isn't a sexy player, right?
Speak for yourself, baby. Yeah. But I don't know, man. The way that Jordan Love talks about Romeo Doubs, he'd say,
and that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
He'd say it's a sexy pick. He'd say, "Who? I don't want to get kicked off."
He was a relatively unknown. He was a 4th-round pick, I believe. I think maybe. I don't know.
But I think I would do this in a heartbeat. Just if you're wrong about Romeo Doubs, you get another shot. That's what it is for, like, a lot of players like this. Like that. This is my whole thing with Dynasty. Like, if a player, it's hard for a player in a second round for you to, it's a stab. It's like a likelihood that this player actually produces. First round, very likely. Second round, probably 50% shot. And then third round, you're throwing darts. Even fourth round, you're throwing far away darts. So second round, like, when players show that they're good, like Brian Robinson, for example, last year, I wanted 2 second rounds. Most people would tell me he's only worth 1 second. I'm like, but why would I give up someone that I know is good for someone I don't know is good? It's like, you want the boat or what could be a boat? It's like, I want the boat, man. So if you want me to give up my boat, give me something that could be a boat and could also be another boat, like, I want to know, so I think that Romeo Doubs and as one target, and then 2025 being the second target to shoot for Courtland Sutton type upside. That's where I'm going with this trade. So I would tear down my team with Courtland Sutton on it to get Romeo Doubs in a second for sure.
All right, so I want to bring this up from barely in the chat here. Signing his new contract, I think, is a really loose term because he's still extremely underpaid when it comes to wide receiver ones. His cap hit is $17.2 million for this year, 17.8 for next year, and the guaranteed money is basically nada. So they can very easily readjust this and get out from under this contract if they wanted to for next year, right? So the base is okay. The base is 13 and a half. 29 years old this year. It to me, it's less about being high on him since signing the new contract. It's basically just a revised version of the 4-year deal that he'd already signed. Mm-hmm. But again, he's set up to have a great season this year. But it all depends on Bo Nix, right? Like, and a lot of these guys that we're talking about today, their quarterback situations are a little shaky. And that's kind of the conversation to be had here with some of these veteran guys that we've seen have productive seasons to help fantasy managers. But there lends some questions for this year, which is why we can probably get them for cheap. And of course, those questions carrying over into 2025. Any thoughts real quick before we move on to the next?
No, I think you nailed it. I mean, like, I'm not. They showed commitment, like, but at the same time, like, you've seen teams be hell bent on players like Brian Burns, for the Panthers, be hell bent on not trading him, and then like a season later, they decided to just switch things up because like they were just stubborn in the time, and they obviously had to change things at the end of the year, So there's really no commitment, like. Josh Jacobs just got a big contract in Green Bay, and there's already people that are like, well, it could be a 1-year deal. So there's always a way out. I think Courtland Sutton's a player that just talent alone, like no matter where he goes, you're probably going to still be drafting him. Like, let's say Courtland Sutton ends up in Buffalo by the trade deadline this year. That's still great value. Like, if they really wanted to just trade him away and didn't want to trade him to the Niners and trade him somewhere else, the trade deadline, to see how the offense works, you just got the wide receiver 1 in Buffalo for Romeo Doubs in a second. So it works both ways, So Courtland Sutton's what, 27, 28, 29. So a little up there, a little past the prime wide receiver age, but still another 2-3 years before you really have to be worried.
I agree. All right. One quick reminder, head over to dynastynerds.com. Select any of their memberships. Use promo code Club Fantasy at checkout. Save yourself 15%. We love our partnership with Dynasty Nerds. Their trade calculator, their Dynasty GM tool. They have their community Discord. But more importantly, we're in college football season, and they have their All-22 film room. Get to know the prospects now, and you will be more than prepared for your rookie drafts in the spring. All right, now we're going to touch base on some tight ends here. Definitely some options. There's really a lot of young options at the tight end position these days, which is great. But they're obviously going to be a lot more expensive because people want to hold on to the young guys because, hey, there's opportunity cost, right? So the first guy I want to bring up, because I feel like people have really left him for dead. And we've touched a little bit on this offense already. That's going to be Hunter Henry. Really, with a young and unproven wide receiver room, who else can they go to, right? Hunter Henry has been a guy that hasn't necessarily seen a ton of targets, put up a ton of yards. He definitely operates in a very Jason Witten-esque, Zach Ertz-esque kind of role where, you're in that 9 to 10.5 yards per reception range. But he's proven to be somebody that can score touchdowns. And sometimes from the tight end position, that's really what you want more than anything, is the guys that can go out there and score touchdowns. So, Hoov, I want to get your thoughts really quick on Hunter Henry before we kind of dive into some potential trades.
Very similar to what we talked about earlier with Demario Douglas. Is like, if you're going to bank on Jacoby Brissett first half of the year, the old guard still being there. But once the new guard's there and Drake May comes in, and even 2025, I don't believe in Hunter Henry anymore. So I think that this year there's a price worth a shot.
Yeah, and again, he did just sign a 3-year extension, so he is going to be there. He's going to be a reliable target for Drake May, and we've talked about this ad nauseum. A reliable tight end is always great for a young quarterback. So let's talk about trades here really quick. Hunter Henry for Josh Downs. I think this is a pretty fair trade on both sides. I'm curious your thoughts.
That's an offense that versus Adonai Mitchell, there's so much more upside with Adonai Mitchell, but just knowing like how the offense is like schemed and knowing like the routes that Adonai Mitchell is going to be running versus Josh Downs. Josh Downs is the safer pick between Adonai Mitchell and Downs, between the wide receiver 2/3 in Indy. So safety is always good. You always like having safe players on your team that are going to produce. And so Hunter Henry feels like safe for his value. And but I think that there's other tight ends that I'd rather target than Hunter Henry. But I think that I would actually target Josh Downs and put him in at a certain point.
Yeah, that's fair. I think really this trade can work for both sides. Josh Downs, to me, had a lot more value last year before they went out and drafted Adonai Mitchell. They signed Michael Pittman. All the camp reports, especially from the beat writers in Indy, Josh Downs has been the best wide receiver for this team, really the best offensive player for the Colts in training camp. Of course, suffers a high ankle sprain. He developed a very quick rapport with Anthony Richardson. So maybe he can survive and hold off Adonai Mitchell for the time being. But again, we know how this Shane Steichen offense works. There's going to be really two main targets. Probably not a lot of balls thrown to the running back, but they're going to run the football. And when you have a quarterback that in theory could have 200 carries, it's going to leave a lot on the table for targets. So I think there's a lot of variation that comes with Josh Downs. He could be really, really good, but he could also be absolutely nothing, which is why I would be fine if I had a hole at tight end, or maybe if my number one tight end was like Dallas Goedert, for instance, I would be okay sending Josh Downs to get somebody like Hunter Henry, because I can kind of play the matchups between Hunter Henry and Dallas Goedert to kind of maximize my spike weeks.
Yeah, so, I like that. Yeah. Okay, you lost me at Dallas Goedert, and you caught me as like, all right, let's play tight end roulette. And I'm like, okay. All right.
And that's why you would be going out and getting Hunter Henry. It's for the tight end roulette, because I don't think Dallas Goedert is the top 12 dynasty tight end.
Yeah.
And that's coming from an Eagles fan, because I just don't know who he is. He is one top 5 points per game season. It's only played one full season. So yeah, I just think there's a lot of variation, and we're still playing on the talent of Dallas Goedert versus the actual results, and we're 6 years in. So
yeah.
Next guy here, Zach Ertz, old guard, probably not a lot to love, and honestly, depending on how deep your dynasty rosters are, you could probably get this guy off waivers. So, but I wanted to bring him up specifically because of the Jahan Dotson trade that the Commanders made. The sexy pick here is Ben Sinnott, right? He's the second-round rookie the Washington Commanders went out and got. There are a lot of people that think that Sinnott is nothing more than an H-back, isn't really a true tight end, that, he's going to have a very limited role as a result. Zach Ertz has played in this Cliff Kingsbury system. He's shown effectiveness, that he hasn't totally fallen off, but we also know that really he's kind of an 8.5 to a 9.8 yards per reception guy at this point in his career, which is very Jason Witten-esque, which really isn't that far from what he's been throughout his entire career, but he's been able to do it on high target volume. I don't know that the volume will be there, but I love this acquisition as more of a early season kind of setup. Again, if you're playing tight end roulette, simply because they don't have a wide receiver 2 right now. And you can make the argument that what?
He's worth a shot.
That's what I'm saying. He's worth a dart throw. Maybe he's still got something left. Maybe he proves to be a very reliable target for Jaden Daniels, and then maybe that carries over. But to me, the wide receiver 2 position right now is between Zach Ertz and Austin Eckler. That's kind of where I look at it. So, Hoov, I'm curious your thoughts on Ertz heading into Dynasty.
I'm looking at Oladime.
Okay.
And I feel like the fact that he's actually outproduced in camp is why they ended up trading Dotson. I'm like, I mean, obviously, like he was the wide receiver.
Said that
in Atlanta, and like everyone wanted to doubt him with Atlanta because they wanted like a true wide receiver 2 that they could like start in fantasy, blah blah blah, with Arthur Smith. But it was never gonna happen, But this almost feels like Buffalo's offense, but cheaper. Is like no one really knows who's going to be the 2. So no one's really like pricing them at anything, but he's been good. I'm going to be hopeful, especially the fact that he's that cheap. Same thing with Zach Ertz. All these guys are pretty cheap to take a stab on. So can't hate it.
Yeah, and I think this trade really personifies it. Zach Ertz straight up for Jonnu Smith. And truthfully, I think you can lump both of these guys into the same category. The biggest difference to me is that you have 2 guys that are going to command 100 plus targets. One of them likely over 170 in Miami in front of Jonnu, whereas Zach Ertz only really has Terry McLaurin to deal with.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm not in on Jonnu Smith. I hope that I can like come to a point where I'm set on tight end. I'd even take a stab on Greg Dulcich in Denver, with the opportunity there. But these guys, if they're even cheaper than that, and I'm looking the last round of a draft in a best ball league, I'll take a stab on these guys.
All right. And then the last guy, the great one, Mr. Travis Kelce, a.k.a. Mr. Taylor Swift.
Shake. He's
been the tight end 1 for what feels like a decade now. Obviously, he's getting up there in age, but you know what? He himself just signed a new 3-year deal. And for all the love of Sam Laporta as the tight end 1 last year, Travis Kelce still had the tight end 1 in points per game. So has he truly fallen off? I don't know. But he still has Patrick Mahomes as his quarterback. So, Hoov, I ask you, where do you sit on Travis Kelce?
Till the wheels fall off. I mean, this is one that feels locked in. I'm a Trey McBride guy this year. I think he finishes as tight end 1, but Travis Kelce feels a tight end 5, top 5 lock, no matter what. Rachaad Rice is probably going to be the solidified 1 this year, until Worthy's ready for it. Or until next year when the Rachaad Rice suspension is in effect, but there's no suspension as of now. So you have to go with what you're told, and Rachaad Rice is being portrayed as the wide receiver 1. So I think that it's going to be very similar to last year, is that Rice is the 1. I mean, Kelce will be the true number 1 receiving option, but Rice will be there as the number 1 wide receiver. And the fact that there's so many weapons in Kansas City, things are going to be opened up for Travis Kelce again this year, and maybe with less distractions, as him being more of a longer relationship, and some of the sparkles off the Kelce and Swift relationship. Maybe now people can get back to football with things.
I like it. All right, and this trade that you added, gotta say, it made me think a little bit. Travis Kelce for Trey McBride and a 2026 second-round pick. Walk us through this.
Well, I'm thinking, there's some people out there that they think that Trey McBride, as great as he could fall back. Maybe he's not a true tight end 1. Like maybe he's someone that finishes like kind of like tight end 6. Like if you think that Kyle Pitts is gonna be a thing this year, then you'd probably think that he would surpass Trey McBride. You'd probably think that George Kittle could surpass Trey McBride with the talent that he has, even with as many weapons there. But I think that if you're a Trey McBride guy and you can get a 2026 second, just as the uncertainty, maybe they're not as big on Trey McBride, and you can try to get a little discount on him. But I think that this is the last off season that you are going to be able to get Trey McBride at a discounted rate. Like he produced last season. Nobody is ready to surpass him like over Kincaid, where I think that he will eventually be at the end of this year. I don't think anyone's putting him like next to Sam Laporta, which I think that he should be at the end of this season.
I will agree wholeheartedly with that. I do have one dynasty team. It's half PPR, super flex, no tight end premium, but I have both Trey McBride and Travis Kelce on my team. And I'm like, you know what? I'm set up for the future. I'm just going to ride Travis Kelce out. Like, let's go, baby. Cause I'm in compete mode. So I want all the points I can get. So, but I do agree. I think this trade definitely makes you think, because I think both can obviously help you this year. Whereas, the McBride side probably helps you 2 to 3 years down the line, but there are plenty of people out there that think that Travis Kelce is still going to be able to help you 2 to 3 years down the line as well. So maybe the deciding factor is adding on that extra second, right? Like that draft capital tends to kind of to sway things. So I think it's definitely something to consider here. And I want to end on this trade here from Brad. Would you trade Jerome Ford and Jalen Waddle for DeVonta Smith? Now, Brad, I'm going to assume that this is a dynasty trade simply because this is a dynasty show. But I will say part of me does think that this is probably redraft. But Hoov, let's talk about this from a dynasty perspective, because Waddle and DeVonta Smith pretty even, I think, in terms of dynasty value in a lot of people's eyes. A lot of people's eyes, I will say. Okay, I'm very much on the DeVonta Smith side. But with running backs being what they are and how thin the position can be from a depth perspective, would you be willing to make this deal, or are you just fully on the Waddle side over DeVonta Smith?
I think that if they put it to me as Ford and Smith for Waddle, that would be probably like one of my favorite trades that I would ever do. Like if that feels very, very fair. Like I think Waddle just is like a smidge above Smith. Like there's just more opportunity in a Mike McDaniel offense, for 2,000-yard receivers. Like obviously I've said it before, DeVonta Smith could prove me wrong with the talent that he has, but Waddle feels very, very safe. And for the long haul as well. So, we don't know if Nick Sirianni is going to be there next year, if they're going to switch it the whole offense once again, if things don't work out this year in Philly. Not going to hope for that for you, but
You're a Niners fan. Of course you are.
It could happen. It could happen. But, for the long haul, Jalen Waddle feels like a safer pick. So if you were going to ask for the difference between DeVonta Smith with Jerome Ford, who Jerome Ford feels like a league winner at his current ADP, I would definitely do that.
Yeah, for me, I'm going to take the Smith side of this, both in redraft and dynasty. But you can call it my Eagles bias all you want. I just personally think that DeVonta Smith is just a better player, and he stays healthy.
Jalen Waddle has not stayed healthy. There's no shame in that. That's important as well.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, you've got to trust that your coordinators are smart enough to realize the talent and adjust their offense accordingly. And DeVonta Smith is, in my opinion, the second most talented pass catcher on that team behind AJ Brown. So, and there are some things that Smitty does better than AJ Brown. So, I mean, you could make the case that he might even be better than AJ Brown. I don't think he is, but I'm saying I think you can definitely make that case. So, but that's that. Hoov, appreciate you, brother.
Absolutely.
Thanks for hopping in and filling in for Joel and making.
I'm under contract, so you guys are stuck seeing me once a week here at Club Fantasy. So I figured I'd get my weekly done on Sunday, since Trade Block was moved from Thursday to Tuesday nights. But if you guys want to check me out next Tuesday, we will be continuing on Trade Block series with Dusty, and we will have a special guest on Tuesday as well to carry on the series. So stay tuned. We got a lot of great shows here at Club Fantasy. Make sure you check them all out. They're not as great. I mean, they're as great.
Not as great. Come on now.
they're just as great as every other one I love my teammates here at Club Fantasy. So make sure you check them out throughout the whole entire week. They do great work here. So make sure you check us out on Tuesdays as well.
All right. One quick reminder, head over to trophysmack.com/WOF. That's WOFF. You want to purchase yourself a new championship belt or a trophy that should read trophy, not ring. Use code WOFF, that's WOFF at checkout, and get yourself a free championship ring. Go get it. trophysmack.com/WOFF. WOFF. All right. For Hoov, I'm Josh. You can follow Hoov on the socials at HoovTube. You can follow myself at the One Hudsonian. And of course, Joel. We love you, buddy. Hope everything's going well. At the Joel Worth. That's WIRTH. You can follow Club Fantasy at Club Fantasy FFL, Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and Twitter. Whew. Website, clubfantasyffl.com. And of course, follow our sister site, Women of Fantasy Football. That's women_FF on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. The website, womenoffantasyfootball.com. Redraft is the party, Dynasty is the after party, and it keeps on spinning year round like the disco ball. So stay tuned. Dynasty after party is going to be moving to Thursday nights. Probably going to be on a little bit of a hiatus as Joel handles some business. But as Hoov mentioned, you can check out our other Dynasty show, Trade Block. They will be moving to Tuesday nights at 9 p.m. It's going to have a little bit of a new look. Might even see a little video. I don't know. Things are going to get some fun. So join Hoov, Dusty, and special guest on Tuesday at 9 p.m. The season's kicking off, and we are excited. Let's go. See you guys soon. Take care.